Hey everybody, Amy DeAndrea here with Pet Emergency Education. Welcome back this week to our Facebook live show. Today, we're going to be talking about pet first aid kits and what really honestly do you need in a pet first aid kit. There's a lot of pet first aid kits on the market. If you go to Amazon or eBay or even the pet store, you can look through a variety of different kits that have a lot of different stuff in them. One thing that I find kind of consistently when I look at pet first aid kits out there on the market is that they really don't have relevant supplies for dogs and cats or whatever the pet is that birds, horses, whatever. I see most of them just are full of bandage material, some grooming supplies like nail trimmers and scissors, and some of those things are important, and we do carry those in our kits as well. But honestly, don't spend $30, $40, $50 on a kit that is just full of stuff that's only going to be usable for bandaging a leg. There are a lot of other emergencies that happen, and there are a lot of other supplies that do not come in the average pet first aid kit. So you saw our kit here. I showed that. This is our 60-piece deluxe kit. It's got 60 very valuable items in it that treat everything from heat stroke to poisoning to toxins in the eyes, bleeding wounds, splinting, a potentially broken limb. So a lot of different things that we go over in our classes, and we teach people how to use all of the items in the kit. But whether or not you take a pet first aid class, it's very important that if you own a dog, cat, horse, bird, lizard, whatever it is, you should have a first aid kit that is well stocked and supplied for any of the types of emergencies that your pet could get into or could experience. There are a lot more injuries than just bandaging up wounds, as I mentioned before. So I will talk about wounds are obviously a big thing. I don't mean to downplay it at all. It definitely is something that a good part of the first aid kit does pertain to wounds and lacerations and contusions and things like that. But there's, again, a lot of other things. So I'll go through our kit and talk about what we carry in our kit, as well as a lot of other supplies that I think you should have on hand for pets. I also have our wilderness first aid kit I'm going to talk about briefly. This is specifically for people who engage in outdoor activities with their dogs, and there are injuries that can happen on the trail while you're camping, while you're hiking, while you're boating, that an animal might not experience, the average pet experiences at home. And so there's some extra items in our wilderness kit that you would not get in the regular pet first aid kit because it's specific to outdoor injuries. And also we carry this one obviously separately. These are two different kits on our website, but with this kit, it's very portable. You can put it in a backpack. It could hook on the, your belt, or I even have clients that buy this and their dogs carry it. So they'll have the, the harness, the hiking harness for the dogs. They have their own little pouches. They carry their own water and their own first aid supplies. So very clever. So we'll talk about that one in just a minute. Actually, that'll probably be a later minute. All right. Deluxe kit. What do you need in the average home supply kit for pet first aid? So my little science here. Why do you need a pet first aid kit? What is important about all of the items that I'm going to show you today? Well, many of the medical emergencies that a dog or a cat or pet would experience, there are certain supplies that would enhance or make the outcome of treating that injury more successful. So if your dog got some chemicals in its eyes, for example, then you could have a syringe full of saline that you can flush the eye with. If the animal had a laceration on its paw, then there's ointments and disinfectants and other bandage material that obviously would make treating that injury more successful than if you didn't have them. And in my veterinary career, I saw a lot of animals that would come into the practice that their injuries were made worse, or unfortunately didn't get better, or it was a more costly treatment at the vet because people didn't have the right supplies to manage or treat the medical injury, first aid supplies, en route to getting to a clinic. So that's kind of my goal today, is to show you a little bit of everything here. I have a whole array of stuff, and whether you buy a kit or make a kit or buy our complete kit, certainly we hope that you'll consider putting these items in it. And most of the items I talk about today are in our deluxe first aid kit, which is very it's a great kit. We've looked at a lot of kits and what to carry in our company. We teach first aid classes. We certainly need to sell the proper kit that we endorse. It's a veterinary approved kit, and everything in it is relevant to pets. I've seen a lot of kits out there that have materials in them that are geared for humans. Someone went to Walgreens or Walmart and bought up a bunch of human first aid supplies and called it a pet first aid kit. Well, unfortunately, a lot of human supplies aren't usable on animals. A number of the disinfectants and medications that are in those human kits can be toxic to pets. Bandage material is not the right size. It's not the right actual material that you can use on a dog or cat. So there's a variety of different reasons that that's a bad idea. So let's get started with what we're gonna talk about today is what do you need in your kit. So the first two items are actually not necessarily used to treat a medical emergency. They're to help you triage the emergency to see how bad it is, or even if an emergency potentially exists. And that's a stethoscope. You can get a pretty inexpensive stethoscope on the market. I think Amazon. I think this one was $20 on Amazon. And it can be a human grade stethoscope. This is one item that if it's a human one, don't go out and spend $50 more on one that calls it veterinary, because it's pretty much the same thing for the most part. I like this one because it has the two heads at the bottom. One is smaller than the other. There is actually a whole lesson tutorial step-by-step on how you wear a stethoscope, how you use it, that unfortunately is not for today's lesson here in Facebook Live. But the long and short of it, the head on the bottom spins, so you can use either side for various different sounds that you're listening to. For kind of just basic purposes of the stethoscope, the main piece here is what you would put on the animal's heart. You could also use this to listen to their lungs to see if you hear rattly lung sounds. Does it sound like they're wheezing? And then of course the heart, you can count the heartbeats and get a heart rate. You can listen to the quality of the sound of the heart. Of course, veterinary professionals are going to use the stethoscope for more in-depth diagnostics, but as the average pet owner or animal professional, if you even own animal business, you definitely should have a stethoscope to be able to listen to the heart, see if you even hear a heartbeat, or be able to listen to lung sounds. I think that's really beneficial, is that you can listen along the back and listen to the lung sounds of the animal to hear if it's rattly, wheezy, if you hear any fluid, anything like that. I'm certainly not trying to teach you or encourage you to diagnose anything on your animal. That's for a licensed veterinarian to do, but there's a lot that you could use this for, and we're not going to go over horses today. That's going to be another Facebook Live coming up soon. But for horses, these are really great, especially if you have a colicky horse that's going to be, you want to listen to gut sounds. And so again, just grab a nice, inexpensive, I think that, like I said, I bought this one on Amazon. I think it was $20. The other item that is good for detecting vital signs, and vital signs are different measurements within the body that help kind of give you an idea what's going on within your animal. Animals are very stoic sometimes. They're not always readily kind of obvious that there's something wrong. Cats especially can really hide their feelings and if they're really sick. Again, that's just, it kind of goes back to their predator-prey instincts in the wild. If you're the sickly one, then you're the one that's probably going to get eaten first by the predator. So dogs and cats try to hide their illness many times, and taking temperature, pulse, and respiratory rate can really help be able to see whether, is this normal, is it not normal, should I go to the vet, maybe I'll just call the vet, let them know what they are, and so that's really helpful. So the stethoscope is good for getting a heart rate. And again, if you take one of our classes, we go over how to do that in great detail and talk specifically about how to take temperature, pulse, and respiratory rate. But for today, lesson on what you should have in a first aid kit. Stethoscope is good for that. It's good to listen for lung sounds too. And I don't know why I'm like backwards mirrored on my video here, sorry. This is a thermometer, right? It's really obvious, you probably figured that out. This particular one I really like. We carry this model in our online store. Everything that we sell right on our website at petemergencyeducation.com. And this is actually a veterinary thermometer. Now, there are digital thermometers that you can buy at the drugstore, Walgreens, Walmart, whatever, that are made for people, and they do. You can use those to get a temperature on a dog or a cat or a horse. But I like this one for two main reasons. Actually, three main reasons. Number one, it has a flexible end. And I can tell you from experience, I've taken temperature on thousands of animals. And when you stick this in their rectum, because that's how we take the temperature in dogs and cats, is that we stick this in their rectum. And you can imagine that's not exactly they don't enjoy that necessarily that much. And they wiggle around and they might move. And you don't want a thermometer kind of, a non-flexible thermometer digging in there and, damaging their intestines. So this one's flexible. So if they wiggle around, it isn't going to damage the tissue on the inside. It also has, I don't know if you can see that there. It has a longer sensor. This metal part is what goes up against the skin inside the rectum, and it detects the temperature, the internal body temperature, and then you get a reading on the digital screen. This one has a longer sensor so that it has more contact with the inside of the animal, which makes it more accurate than the average human thermometer. It also, the third thing I love about it is that it is a 9-second rapid thermometer. So most human thermometers and other animal thermometers basically cook for 60 seconds. So you put it in there, you hit the little, you hear the beep, beep, that turns it on. You stick it in the rectum, put some Vaseline on it so it's not slides in there easy. You slide that in the rectum, and then you have to wait 60 seconds. Now, these animals may not be patient, especially if they don't feel well. You might have a lot of trouble, especially with cats. I love them to death, but they can really be squiggly when you're trying to take a temperature, and potentially dangerous because that's not their thing to really want to do. So this detects a temperature in 9 seconds. So by the time you put it in and the animal figures out they want to be upset about what's happening right now, it's done. Take it out. Very accurate temperature. It's got the longer sensor on it. It's a great thermometer. So again, it's a veterinary approved thermometer, specifically geared towards dogs and cats. You can also use it in horses. Works good for that too. But I have a separate horse thermometer that I'll talk about when I do my equine first aid kit tutorial. Comes in a nice little case, keeps it clean. So make sure you have a thermometer in your first aid kit. And if you want a veterinary thermometer, there's not many places you can get them. So you go on our website, you can buy one from us. I think they're $14.95. So what's next? So that's basically what you need for detecting vital signs as far as the first aid kit is concerned. Those are some of the supplies that will help you get vital signs more accurately. What's normal for vital signs? Well, you'll just have to take a class and we can teach that to you. All right. So before I get into some of the other supplies that I think you need in a first aid kit, I have to, of course, do my disclaimer that whenever you have a medical emergency, and in particular you're going to use something of chemical substance, so like a medication, an ointment, anything like that, it is my job as a veterinary professional to strongly recommend that you consult a licensed veterinarian before you're giving any medications over the counter, otherwise to your pets. I will not in this session, nor do I in my classes, and nor do I allow my instructors in their classes to give advice on medications to be given to animals. That is the job of a licensed veterinarian. Give them a call, consult them about what you should give, and don't just assume that if it's good for humans, it's good for animals. In many cases, it's not. And you can create a really bad, potentially life-threatening toxicity situation if you give something to a pet that's not approved for pets. So there are some disinfectants and some other, ointments and things I am going to talk about today that I'm going to recommend in your kit. But in general, I always put that out there that when in doubt, if you're wondering giving any type of medications to your pets, you really should talk to your vet first. It's my veterinary colleagues. I told you I would tell it. All right. So before we get to wounds, because like I said, a lot of first aid kits really emphasize and mostly have wound supplies in the kits. And that's great, you should. And I'm going to talk about exactly all the different wound supplies. I mean, half my counter over here is wound supply first aid items. But it really should not be the entire kit. There are a lot of other things that you need. And so before I get into that, what I want to do is go over some of the non-wound items that are important. And I have kind of stuff everywhere here, so be patient with me as I try to make sure I cover everything. So here are some items you may not have thought of that I would highly recommend in a kit. First one is any type of large forceps. You could plastic. I don't like metal, plastic. You can also use salad tongs for this. This is great for an animal that's choking because dogs and cats are a predatory species, and when you go to put your hand in their mouth to pull out an object they're choking on, that can be potentially dangerous for you. The other thing that I've seen when animals are choking is people will panic. They'll put their hands down their animal's throat and they end up pushing it in further. And that's, causes another whole array of problems. So if you have some plastic tongs or salad tongs, you can go in, grab that item and pull it out. The other nice thing about these is when you have an animal that's choking, there's a little quick choking tutorial. So when you have an animal that's choking, especially with balls, because balls get slimy and they get stuck very easily. If you go in straight at the item to try and grab it, like I just mentioned many times, you'll push it in further. Now, when we go in with our hands, and what we teach, in the veterinary industry and what we teach in our classes is you go in with one finger. It can be your pinky, it can be your forefinger, whatever. You're going to go in around the back of the item and pull it out. So you're going in from the side, hook around it, and pull forward. You never want to go straight at it. With tongs, you can actually go in and you can grab the item. Oops, my tongs are not wide enough for my fingers. You can actually grab the item and pull it out this way. You're grabbing it on either side, not from the front. So from the sides, you're able to get a better grip on it and pull the object out. So that's why I really like tongs, and you don't get bit. If they can bite the tongs, they're not going to bite you. So that's one item. Next, which actually let's talk about this item before. An extra leash. And this is very important for the wilderness kit too. If you're walking your dog and they get hurt or they get loose, and you're trying to chase them or find them and they're lost and something happens to them, having an extra leash. This particular one comes in our kit. It's reflective, so it's good at night so that you can have something that's reflective for them to be able to, cars and such, especially if you've had to chase a loose dog or find a loose dog. So just a simple extra leash for them is great to have on hand. I don't think anybody should go hiking or on long walks or anything like that with their dog without having an extra leash available, just in case the one they're wearing breaks, or like I said, they get loose, or you come upon, maybe it's not even your own pet, and you come upon an animal that is loose and in need of some type of care, then you can have a leash. I actually had that happen to me once. We were when we lived back in Colorado, there was a little dog that had gotten loose from a local neighbor's house, a yard, and was running around in the street, and nobody knew where the dog lived and nobody could catch the dog. So I lived very close by. I ran home. I picked up a leash, an extra leash that we had for Cootie, and was able to go out there, and another neighbor helped me catch the dog, put it on a leash, because it was, I say he was little, but he was big enough that we didn't want to just sit there and hold him until walking around trying to figure out where he lived. So that was helpful. And it kept him from getting hit by a car because it was a busy intersection that he was tearing around. So extra leash. Oh, that was terrible. Sorry, Cooter. So a whistle, having this, all of our wilderness kits come with a whistle. If you're going to be walking or hiking in a remote area especially, and you get lost or you need help, this is a great way to alert other hikers or rescuers or first responders to your location. Just yelling a lot of times is not loud enough. It bounces off, especially if you're hiking somewhere in a very remote area, like we hike in Colorado in the mountains and canyons, slot canyons over in Utah, and when we yell, the reverberation, a lot of times it might not get to someone, they might not know we're there. So having an extra whistle is, or just a whistle, not an extra one, but having a whistle would be great. Here's one that is very, very important. This little guy, super inexpensive. We sell them for $5 on our website. It's a collapsible bowl. It collapses open so that you can fill it with water for your dog when you're hiking or away from home. When you're out with your dog, have one of these on you. We live in Las Vegas, so it's the desert here and it's hot as Hades. And so we never leave home without our bowl for our dog. Even if we're going for a 1 mile walk around the block, we take our bowl with us and be able to give him water. When an animal becomes hyperthermic or gets heat stroke, they can easily become dehydrated. Many times, often they are dehydrated, or even, if they become dehydrated, not even from the heat, but that they have not had enough fluids, you want to be giving your animal water as often as, let's put it this way, as often as you drink water when you're walking or hiking, that's how often you should be giving water to your dog. And I've seen a number of hypothermic situations and dehydration situations where people brought water for themselves but didn't offer any water for their dog, thinking that, oh, he can just drink when he gets home. That's not the case. And you don't want to be in a situation where your dog doesn't have enough water. It can be very, very life-threatening, especially if you live in an area like I do, where it's very hot everywhere you go all the time. So that's important. So collapsible bowl, it's really great. It has a little carabiner on it, so you can carry it. We put ours on our dog's leash and just go with us. So that's something that we take with us all the time, not just in our first aid kit, but whenever we're walking and we need to provide water for our Cootie. All right, let me put this over here because I'm gonna show you things twice. All right, so here's the whistle. Stick that guy over there. So as we're talking, let's stay on the topic of body temperature emergencies. So we just talked about needing a water bowl so that you are able to give water to your dog. And now, also if the animal gets hot, heat stroke, hypothermia, this is a disposable ice pack. We have all this stuff in our kits, but this one, it's a one-time use. What you do is you crush it and you shake it and it gets really cold. I mean, really cold. This is great for you too. So Have an ice pack with you if the temperatures are hot outside, or even, if you see your animal experiencing a hypothermic situation where their body temperature is too high. Of course, you can take their little mini first aid lesson. You can use your thermometer, take their temperature. If their body temperature is too high, then you can put this on them. You can, I like to put it either under the ears or on the belly. That's, or in the armpits. That's another good spot. Those are all areas on your dog or your cat that have less hair to block the cold temperatures from cooling down their blood. These things, make sure you feel them. If they feel like they're getting really cold, then I would recommend wrapping them in a face cloth or something like that, pillowcase, and then putting it on your animal. You don't want to end up with a situation where it cause injury to the skin because it was too cold. So sometimes these guys get a little too cold, but they're great in warm weather, and they're great for animals that need to bring their body temperature down. All right, ice pack. They do have like reusable ones that you can stick in your freezer and they freeze, and then you can take them with you. The reason I don't really like those is because, well, you have to remember to go get it out of the freezer and throw it in your first aid kit and, go wherever. It's good for home, like if you have an emergency that happens at home and you need an ice pack, but if you leave the home, you need something, a lot of people buy our first aid kits and keep them in their car so that they have them available, have the supplies available. Some put them in their camping gear in their RVs, and so you have to remember to bring your ice pack. We used to have a reusable one, and I always forgot to bring it with me, so we use these. These are pretty cheap, and they come in, like ours comes in our kit. Okay, so next, this is always an entertaining one for our classes. When we teach our classes, I bring this guy out. And people are like, what? So this here is a Mylar blanket. It's a survival blanket. They come like this in a little package. See how neat that is? And then when you take it out to use it, it turns into this mesh. But it's reusable. It's pretty sturdy. Works pretty good. What this is for is it retains body heat. And the nice benefit about this one is it retains 90% of body heat. And if your animal, say, is going into shock or has been lost in the freezing cold and isn't producing their own body heat, you can actually put a heat pack, or even yourself, hold your animal in your chest, wrap this around you, and it will deflect any heat that's within it. If you go on our website and you go in our product store to buy one of these, you'll see a picture of our dog, Cootie, who many of you know. He's like our little mascot who's sleeping over here. But he actually is modeling this. We wrapped him in it, and he was like, what? But, he was cool with it. It just makes a lot of noise. And it's very shiny and everything. I would caution people if you're going to use this on your horses. Again, horses is another tutorial, but just to bring it up, you can use these on horses. They're very large. They can, wrap around them if they are hypothermic, getting cold. But if your horse is not accustomed to scary stuff, definitely I would get them used to it while they're normal and healthy, right, before an emergency happens, to make sure that they're going to be cool with it. But most dogs and cats, if you're using this, the animal is pretty in rough shape, and their fight or their fear mechanism is pretty delayed. They're like, they feel so badly they don't care that you're putting a giant shiny piece of tinfoil on them. So again, we sell these for $5 on our website. But this is a Mylar, they call it a Mylar rescue blanket. I've also seen it listed as an emergency thermal blanket, same thing. Just a big giant piece of tinfoil, and helps reflect heat. So those come in kits as well. That's highly recommended. So obviously, have one of those. All right, the next thing is I have a large syringe. This one is is this a 60 cc? Yeah, this is a 60 cc syringe. It doesn't have needles on it. We don't don't encourage nor recommend anything with needles, obviously. That would be licensed veterinarian advice. Contact them first. Plus, majority of places you can't buy them with needles anyway, because you're not given vaccines here. I'm not teaching you or recommending you inject your animal with anything. This is good for flushing eyes, so chemicals in the eyes, allergens in the eyes. You can use some sterile saline, suck it up. Oops, I probably should take the tip off of it. Suck it up into the syringe and then gently, don't like fire it into their eye, but you want to just, gently rinse their eyes. You can rinse if they're choking on something or they've got something toxic in their mouth. I had a greyhound once that ate rat poison, and she had all the green rat poison in her teeth, and I used, saline to, help rinse all that out. So you can also use this if your veterinarian recommends that you give something to your pet that's oral, that goes in their mouth. You can use this also to administer that. And of course, I'm sure they would, when they prescribe that to your pet, they would show you how to do that. But having a sterile syringe is really helpful. It can be useful in a lot of different ways. You can also flush wounds with it, which we're going to talk about wounds in a minute because we have so much wound stuff to cover. But you can also use that to flush out wounds. Saline, you can pick that up at any drugstore. Walmart has it. To be perfectly honest, if you're rinsing out wounds or even rinsing out the mouth, you can use bottled water. As long as it's clean, bottled water, unopened bottled water, it's perfectly safe. You don't have to purchase saline to do that. So that's kind of the recommendation for that. So syringe. And you can also, these come in many different sizes. I mean, this is a big one. But you can get them anywhere from, itty bitty little 0.5 cc syringes all the way up to this one and anything in between. So, you don't have to buy a giant one. If you have a large dog, I would recommend something bigger. Horses, something bigger. Cats and smaller animals, you can buy a little bit smaller one. So that's plastic syringe. And again, once you open it, it's not sterile anymore, but you can reuse it, clean it really good. You can reuse it for things like rinsing wounds, rinsing eyes, rinsing, the mouth, and, a variety of those types of things without it being sterile. So that's okay. All right, put that pile there. What are some other things? This is a barrier mask. These are used when you're administering CPR. I should put them like this. So when you're administering CPR on dogs and cats, they're like just a plastic reusable mask that you can put over their face so that you can, of course this one's not gonna come out. Got it. Yay. All right, so this thing here, so these were human barrier masks that we now offer for use in animals. People, they don't recommend mouth-to-mouth anymore in people. It's compression-only CPR. It's very, very strong emphasis on that. But for pets, we do still do mouth-to-snout in dogs and cats. And some people, if animals bleeding through their nose or they're vomiting and there's vomit on their face, things that they're, they don't want to put their mouth over the animal's nose. You can use one of these devices, and if you come to one of our classes, we can show you how to do that. But it's very simple. It's a one-way valve. So you can blow through it, but you can't, nothing comes back up into your mouth. So this is a very big seller for us and something we also sell on our website too. So barrier masks, good for CPR, have on hand. Oh, and I should mention, they have this little reusable carry case. They have the compression to breath ratio, 30 compressions to 2 breaths right here on the front. Nice little handy keychain. You could also hook it to a leash. So that's another helpful item. All right, so here we go. With a lot of wound care, which seems to be what a lot of kits emphasize. I don't know why they just put in a bunch of bandage material and don't give you all these other things that are so important. But the first thing that I would recommend is a pair of bandage scissors. We carry this pair. It's got the flattened end, so you can put it underneath. It scoops under bandages and you can just trim them off. This is good for getting also if anything gets stuck in your dog's fur or cat, I guess if you have like a big hairy cat, any type of prickers, gum, residues, sap from trees. And sometimes dogs get into sap because they get hiking and they rub up against bushes and such. So these are not just for bandages, they're good for a variety of other things, other first aid emergencies. All right, what else do I have here? Okay, got a lot of stuff now. Here's one of my pet peeves. Oops, let me try to do that again. Disinfectants. And actually I'm missing the third disinfectant, which is chlorhexidine, which is a very common disinfectant that's used. It's a medical grade. A lot of veterinary hospitals use chlorhexidine, so do human hospitals. I love chlorhexidine. It actually is a great disinfectant. It's a little bit on the pricey side, you have to get it from there are different types of specialty stores. I think Petco or PetSmart or one of the box stores sells them. You can order it online. But like I said, it's pricier, but there's a lot of great benefits to it. It's very soft on the tissues, and promotes healing. But these are also two great disinfectants. However, there is a right and wrong way to use them. So let's start with the most common one, which is hydrogen peroxide. This is very cheap. You can buy it pretty much anywhere. It is a very good disinfectant. Like, it kills cooties, really, not you cootie, but bacteria and viruses, micro cooties, really well. I really like it for bite wounds, for bite injuries. If you have a smaller syringe, you can actually suck up some hydrogen peroxide and actually squirt it in the holes where the animal was bitten, and it foams up. It's like the volcanic science project, and really helps kill all the bacteria. Bite wounds are very infectious. I've seen a lot of bite wounds come into the clinic that got festered and become septic, and they get infected very easily. One thing I definitely should mention is when you have an animal that's been bitten, definitely consult a veterinarian. You probably need to get it to a veterinary clinic because it's likely going to need oral antibiotics and may potentially need, some other more severe interventions such as, drains and things like that. But with hydrogen peroxide, if you've ever used hydrogen peroxide on yourself, because it's used on humans, obviously, and you get the residue on your fingers or on your skin, it turns white. That's some of the chemical properties where it's killing the microorganisms on the skin surface. The challenge with that is it also inhibits healing. So that residue left on the skin can actually cause the wound to not heal properly, or not heal well. There'll be more scar tissue. So if you're going to use hydrogen peroxide as a disinfectant in your animal's wound, I highly recommend rinsing it with either clean bottled water or saline after 10 minutes. So 10 minutes is, if you read any of these labels, they all will say contact time is 10 minutes. Chlorhexidine's the same way. So what you want to do is you want to make sure these are on the surface of the skin or in the wound for 10 minutes. That's how long it's going to take for them to kill all of the microorganisms and bacteria in the wound. Then take your clean water or sterile saline and rinse it. You can even use your syringe. And just rinse it really good. And then depending on how often your veterinarian recommends you clean the wound, sometimes it's once a day, sometimes it's twice a day, sometimes once every few days. It just depends on how bad the wound is. So that's what you want to use. But that's my public service announcement. Hydrogen peroxide, pretty good disinfectant, but does not have the best properties for ultimate healing. So definitely pay attention to that. If you use it. The next one is iodine. Very, very common. Super common in horses. Horse people use iodine all the time. This is the stuff that if you're old enough like I am, and back in the day in elementary school, the nurse, when you skinned your knee on the playground, you go to the nurse's office and she put the swab with the orange stuff and you stained your skin orange and you were orange for like 3 days. That was iodine. So it's actually povidone iodine. There is a trade name called Betadine, same thing. This, I've been told by multiple veterinarians, they highly recommend if you're going to use this, you dilute it 50% iodine with 50% clean water, either bottled water or sterile water. Mix it up really good, because this full strength is pretty harsh. And it actually can also cause, very similar to the hydrogen peroxide, where it can cause some delayed healing and damage to the new healthy skin cells that are forming, things like that. But it's a great disinfectant, also very good for most things. I actually use this on abscesses in my horse. She's so prone to abscessing, but this is a good thing that always is like a default of mine. It works great. So that's iodine. And then a chlorhexidine, of course. I don't have a bottle here, but that's also something that is great to use. It's a great disinfectant too. All right. So something else I recommend is to have a pair of disposable gloves. A lot of times when you're working with a wound, especially if it's a bite wound or an infectious wound, it's got pus coming out of it, you want to be as clean as possible, not just to protect yourself from any type of contaminations or contaminants, zoonotic issues where there's something passed from the animal to you, but you don't want to create a worse infection for your pet. And so most of these are one size. I think the ones in our kit are one size fit all. And you can just have an extra pair. If you use them, obviously throw them away. You're using them probably to clean out something that's gross. And just replace them with another pair. They're fairly inexpensive by themselves. And I think you can even buy a box of them at Walmart. But most first aid kits come with these. All right, so gloves, those are helpful. Let's talk about some bleeding wounds and some absorbent materials. So here's a great piece of absorbent. This is a compression bandage. It's very thick. This is the package, actually. I'll open it for you so you can see what it actually looks like when it comes out. So it looks like this, kind of like a little flat diaper or maxi pad, which I guess you could probably use too. This helps absorb blood or any other type of fluid from a wound. So you can actually wrap this on the wound, or you can just put it on with great pressure if you're trying to stop a bleeding wound, and it'll absorb any of that, the blood that's gushing or coming out, or if there's any other type of fluid that you're trying to absorb, you can actually put that on there. So that's a great compression bandages are really helpful. Regular, so these are like gauze pads, which are great for keeping wounds clean after they've been addressed. Once you've stopped the bleeding, then you can put, an antibiotic treatment or something like that in there, and then put some sterile gauze. This is sterile, so it's, there's no microorganisms in it whatsoever. Items that are not sterile still have surface microorganisms on them, which may or may not be infectious. It'll still be perfectly fine to clean a wound. However, having something like this is much cleaner, but it's very thin, if you can see that. It's not very absorbent, so you want to have some type of compression, to stop bleeding in your wound, in your first aid kit. But again, gauze pads, I have a variety of different sizes that we put in our pet first aid kit. So, having a lot of different size gauze pads is great. It's really helpful depending on the size of your animal, the size of the wound. These are really multifunctional. So it's great to have a bunch of gauze pads in there. So I have a whole stack over here that we put in our kits. Something else let me see here. Okay, we'll do that after. Okay. Is some type of quick stop powder. If you have ever trimmed your dog's nails and you've cut the nails too short, and you use, you have this little, or they sell this little, it's called Quick Stop. It's a powder you can pack in the nail and it'll stop it from bleeding. What it's doing is that powder is causing the blood to clot. And then the bleeding will stop in many situations. If it's a really big wound, like a very large wound, the Quick Stop might not work, but this is the same stuff. It's safe for animals, and it's just basically a powder that you can put in a wound to stop it from bleeding if you're unable to stop the bleeding, or say you have a laceration and you're out hiking and who knows where and you need to get your animal back to the car. You can put some Quick Stop powder on it to keep it from hopefully slowing it down or stopping the bleeding until you're able to get to veterinary care. So Quick Stop powder is good. Our kit, we have some in our first aid kit that we give too. So it's safe for animals. All right, get that out of there, get that out of there. What else do I want to show you over here? Q-tips. Q-tips are really great. They're good for bite wounds. They're good for, being able to swab out any type of wound that you're trying to get debris out of. If you're trying to flush it with water and then clean it out with a Q-tip. You can, clean debris out of their ears. So this is also something. It's also good for putting on medication. Like you can, instead of using your hands that might be dirty, you can use a Q-tip, swab it in the antibiotic ointment, and then put it in the wound. So these guys are great for a lot of different things. Let's see. I don't want to go out of order here. All right, let me show you something. So since I'm almost done with the actual bandage material that I want to show you that I think is important. I see so many pet first aid kits have human flex Band-Aids in them. These are not useful on animals. They really aren't. They may be good as a kind of a quick patch-up job if you have a very small animal and you're trying to, we want to wrap this on to keep a wound from bleeding or to keep it clean until you get to the vet. But the problem is they don't really stick to fur very well. They're elastic, which means they can actually constrict blood vessels, and animals can have, I saw someone once put these around a dog's leg. I think it was a Chihuahua. It was a little dog. And so, they're this big, and then she had wrapped it around the Chihuahua's leg nice and snug, and which was great. It was commendable. She was trying to stop the bleeding, but the problem is it also stopped the blood flow to the limb. And by the time she got to us, the wound, the limb was cold, and he ended up being okay, but it could have been a really bad situation where he could have, had compromised his limb because of the she had blocked off the blood flow with a Band-Aid. So Band-Aids are really stupid. You shouldn't use those in your first aid kit for your dog and cat. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, here, this is a good one. So I read an article on this week because someone had asked in one of our classes about ointments that you put on your pet, disinfectant ointments. Because in people, when our kids get hurt, we clean it off, maybe put some iodine on it, and then we slather some triple antibiotic ointment on it. Bacitracin is a common human disinfectant that we put in wounds. It's like a petroleum jelly base. It's got antibiotic properties in it, and then when you put it in the wound, the petroleum jelly helps it stick in the wound and kills the bacteria to help the wound heal. So triple antibiotic ointment itself is safe for dogs and cats. We actually carry a type of triple antibiotic in our kits. They're little packets. There's a bunch of them that we throw in the kit. They're like, so you can just, instead of having a whole tube, you can just grab one little one and use it for what you need to. And these guys have the same, a lot of the same type of antibiotic medications in it that can be used on people. So these little guys are very safe. If you have triple antibiotic ointment that you're going to put in a wound, the most important thing, and something that I was in this article that I thought was really a good tip, is never use triple antibiotic ointment that has a painkiller in it, because pets will lick the wound. And you don't want to put anything in there that if they ingest it could be potentially toxic. And so this is very common in people. This little guy is in our medicine cabinet for my husband and I, for our wounds, because it has the antibiotic properties in it, but then it also has a pain relief to take away the pain, helps dull the pain within the wound, which is all fine and good for people, but again, this is, you know, toxic for pets. Don't use this type of antibiotic on pets. Use regular triple antibiotic ointments without any painkiller in them. All right, that's that. We also have some, people ask all the time about alcohol pads. You know, alcohol pads are good for some things, but they aren't good for what a lot of people think they are. A lot of people think that they can be used as a disinfectant to treat a wound. So instead of using hydrogen peroxide or iodine or triple antibiotic, they'll put alcohol. Have you ever had alcohol in a cut? It's awful. It burns. And honestly, alcohol itself, isopropyl alcohol, isn't going to kill bacteria. It's a bacteriostatic solution, which means that it renders bacteria unable to reproduce, so it stops it from becoming kind of a worse infection, but it doesn't kill the bacteria that's already in the wound, and it burns like crazy. So what I do like alcohol for is if your dog is getting hot, potentially heat stroke, or you're out hiking, he's panting a lot, you're giving him water and you want to cool him down, you can take alcohol pads and rub it on the pads of their feet. And that if you rub alcohol on your skin, you've probably felt that, you know, that sensation where it gets really cold. That's what happens. It helps bring a very, you know, quick cooling sensation. Try not to let them lick it. You don't want to have them licking alcohol, but it is a good way to cool them down. You can also, some people put it under their armpits to help cool them down. So that's, you know, but as far as like a disinfectant or anything like that, it's not good for that. Okay. Rolled gauze. Gauze comes, it's basically stretchy. It doesn't stick to itself. It's not sticky like some of the other bandages I'm going to show you. Rolled gauze is good as to support a limb if you're putting on a splint. It's good to hold gauze pads in place over a wound to keep them clean. It's a good support bandage. It is stretchy, so there is a right and wrong way to put bandage on a dog and cat's limb. In the veterinary world, we're very picky about how bandages are put on pets. If you're not sure, don't even try it. You know, call your local veterinary clinic. They'll probably let you come in and they'll do a bandage for you. Because if you put this on too tight, you can cut off the circulation to the animal's limb. Their paws will swell, and it can be a big problem. I actually, way back in the beginning of my career, there was a pit bull puppy that came into the clinic I was working for, and the owner had hurt himself. The dog had hurt himself somehow, and the owner had put on his own bandage, didn't go to the vet, didn't consult a vet, just put on an old bandage. And then a week later, the puppy was crying, you couldn't even touch her limb. She kept pulling it away. And lo and behold, he had put it on too tight, and it actually not only stopped the blood flow to the limb died. And we had to actually amputate the limb. So it can be very, very serious. Bandaging is no joke. There is a right or wrong way to put it on. So, if you come to one of our classes, we'll give access to our resource center, which has tutorials on how to put on bandages. And then, of course, you can always ask your local veterinary professionals, and they will, I'm sure, teach you how to bandage your pet. Particularly if you go in for the treatment for the dog, they'll put on the bandage. And then they may show you how to do a bandage change in a few days, or they may have you just come back and do a bandage change free of charge. So honestly, it can be, it can be something that you don't have to do yourself. But if you're doing something quick on the fly, say you want to, take the compression bandage and you want to put a bandage on to hold it in place while you get to the clinic, that's perfectly acceptable. For that trip to the clinic, it might be more beneficial for you to throw the bandage on than not. So that's an option. And like I said, it comes in different sizes. This is 3 inch, this is 2 or 1.5, depending on the size of your animal and how big they are. Depends on how you do. The most common size for dogs and cats is the 2-inch, so that's what we carry in our kits. But if you have a large, like you have horses or a really large breed dog, you can get the 3-inch roll. Then we have this elastic adhesive bandage. This is very, very popular. So, oh my goodness, this one's cute too because it has paw prints on it. I love that. This is the one that comes in our kit. We do the paw print one. And it doesn't have residue, like sticky adhesive on it, but it's made out of this rubberized elastic material so that when you wrap it, it does, stick to itself. Again, this is stretchy, so you have to be careful when you're putting it on. This is usually the last layer of a bandage, so it's the final layer, helps keep the wound clean, helps support the limb, and also protect the entire bandage from, hopefully your dog chewing on it. It comes in different, this is 2-inch, because most dogs and cats use 2-inch, and then this is the larger one. This is my horse bandage, but you can come in different sizes. These are splints, and these are, plastic, or this is wood. This is a tongue depressor actually, but it's they're obviously very straight, hard devices that you can put on the limb. I'm having trouble here with my phone. So you can put it on the limb, and then you can tape it in place, and it will prevent your animal's leg from bending. This is very important for people who go hiking with their dogs, or might be far away from their car, where if their animal gets hurt and you can't physically carry them to the car, you might want to have a splint in your first aid kit so that you can put that on the animal's leg, and it will support the leg and keep the injury from bending and getting worse, hopefully until you get to the clinic. And for some small dogs, you can use the tongue depressors as well. So those, and these come in different sizes. This is a small one. They come in medium, large, extra large. I bought this one for $2 on Amazon. So if you go on Amazon and put in dog spoon splint, you'll be able to see a bunch of different sizes. And then you can just measure your dog's limb from the elbow down, and then order a splint that fits your dog. So splints. This is porous tape. It is not flexible. I like this. I use this to hold the splint in place on a limb temporarily. It's not a long-term thing. It's just to hold it down so you can, wrap it around the animal's leg in like 2 places. And so this stuff is very constrictive. I also like to put, oh my goodness, it's being a pain here. There we go. All right, so it's kind of like an athletic bandage for a person. So I just use the 1-inch. That's what comes in our kit. You actually get 2 rolls of this in our kit because they're good for splints. They're good for holding compression bandages in place en route to the clinic. They're good at the top of a bandage if you have the bandage with the vet wrap all the way up the limb, and you don't want anything to get down inside there, like mud or debris or whatever. You can actually put the tape around the top. Just be careful because it is not stretchy. It can be very constrictive as well. I mean, that's my tip for everything that has to do with bandaging, is that I've seen it, my veterinary colleagues have seen it so many times, that animals' injuries get worse or can be permanent. They might have, like the puppy that had to have her leg amputated because someone put on a bandage incorrectly. There is such thing as putting bandages on too loose too, and it actually surprises me because bandages really need tutorials on how to put them on, which is what we do in our tutorials in our classes. That so many pet first aid kits just throw in 90% bandage material and 10% some other random stuff that most of you don't need. But so those are the porous tape. That's a good one too. And then that's pretty much what I wanted to show you for the basic pet first aid kit. Everything, that I went over today is vitally important. I threw out some scenarios where you would use these items. There are so many other scenarios that could go wrong. I don't have enough time in one Facebook Live. Certainly come to a class, and we'll teach you all about the different supplies and the different emergencies, everything from burns to allergic reactions to drowning and a variety of things in between, shock. But this is, really to prepare yourself for any type of emergency that could happen. So this is just kind of an array of stuff. Now, before we go, I did want to show you our wilderness first aid kit. Now, the wilderness first aid kit is a little different. Now, some of the things in the wilderness kit do overlap. For example, pull out some things here. Got your Mylar blanket, your tinfoil blanket for hypothermia. Collapsible bowl. And these are all things that come in our wilderness kit, and you can buy these on our website too. I'll talk at the end about how you can purchase all these first aid items from us. So collapsible bowl, very important. Pair of scissors. These particular ones are multifunctional scissors. They're not actual bandage scissors, but they're very good. You can use them for bandages as well as a variety of other things. Some rolled gauze. Talked about that. Sterile gloves. The disinfectants. So I should mention, let's see what I'll do it in here. Our deluxe kit does not come with the bowl. It comes with all this other stuff, I think. It comes with the disinfectants. It does not come with the blanket, the barrier mask. It does not, we have a 4-foot piece of multi-use rope, can also be used as a leash. Also can be used for muzzling, for making a sling, much different things. And in our Wilderness First Aid for Dogs class, we go over all the different types of things that you can use rope for and why rope is important. This one has splints, which the other kit does not. Let's see, this one has the multi-use card tool. I love this thing. This is great, even if you don't have your pet with you. This is a really helpful little gadget. It has a screwdriver, a saw, a compass, a bottle opener. There's a blade on here if you need to cut something, and it comes in this nice little handy pouch. So this is very popular in a lot of human camping or wilderness first aid kits for people. They have these. So these are cool, and they come in each one of our kits because they can be very useful for a variety of things. We also have a headlamp. So let me see here. Yeah. So this is an LED. It's super crazy bright. It goes on your head. So if you get lost in in the dark, or you haven't got to your car yet, you want to be able to light up your path. These guys are really great, so we have one of those too. And then of course we have our nice little durable case that you can put everything in for the wilderness kit. So a few items overlap, but only a few. I think there's 1, 2, 3 of these items come in the deluxe kit. Everything else is unique to this wilderness kit. So that might be something that you'd be very interested in if you do a lot of outdoor activity with your dog, where you might be in a remote area and you aren't able to get to your car or vet clinic for very quickly. All right, and I think we're good for today. I appreciate you guys watching and learning a little bit more about what you should have on hand for your pets. I can't even tell you how many times in the veterinary clinics that I've worked in, pets would come through the door and they could have been saved, or their conditions would not be as worse if the owner or the caregiver, pet sitter, doggy daycare worker had the right supplies to use. And definitely, shop around for kits. If you want to look at other kits, we welcome anybody to do that. But how do you buy your kit? Well, you can buy an amazing deluxe first aid kit on PetEmergencyEducation.com. So as I mentioned, we have a 60-piece the deluxe kit that I had showed you at the beginning today. This is our 60-piece kit, waterproof container, durable, and it comes with 60 of the pieces that I show you today. We also have refill packs on our website, so if you run out of materials and you want to buy more, remember, don't buy a first aid kit that just has random things in it that may not be useful. There are some very important things here today. All of it's very important that you really need to have if you have a medical emergency. And a lot of first aid kits don't have the right stuff, and they don't have enough of the right stuff, or if they have stuff, it might be for people, and you need something that's rated specifically for dogs and cats. So we have this one, and then our wilderness first aid kit is also on our website. It's $29.95. The deluxe is $39.95. It has extra items in it that are not found in the regular deluxe kit, specifically for outdoorsy folk and outdoorsy pets. So that is that one. And 10% off, people. 10% off a deluxe first aid kit until midnight. That's Friday. Because I had printed this, and then we decided we were going to extend it until Friday, so that all you awesome people who are watching this after the live show, so it's not live anymore, you can still benefit from our awesome discount. So 10% off your deluxe first aid kit. You have to use promo code PETKIT10 once you get into the store and checkout. So go to PetEmergencyEducation.com. At the very top in the menu bar, you're going to see Pet First Aid Supplies. That's our online supply store where we sell many of the items here today, our 2 amazing first aid kits, as well as a variety of other animal medical items that you might be interested in. Purchase the kit, put it in the cart. When you go to the cart to pay in the checkout, there's going to be a coupon box. They're going to ask you for the promo code. You put in that code, you will get your 10% off. So it's a heck of a deal, and we're really excited to help people be better prepared for emergencies that happen with their pets. So thank you so much. This is Amy DeAndrea signing off. We really appreciate you checking into our Facebook Lives, and definitely like our page, share our page with your friends, family, and colleagues. We want to make sure that everyone has access to helpful, relevant, exciting, new, current information about taking care of your pets. Bye, everybody.